Welcome to the Veterinary Marketing Podcast, where it's all about helping your veterinary practice attract, engage, and retain clients. Broadcasting a new podcast every Monday from sunny Southern California, here's your host, Brandon Bashirs.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 140 of the Veterinary Marketing Podcast. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Today's episode is going to be why it is so important that you become a multi-channel marketer, what that means specifically, and I think it's going to be very, very important, especially as the digital marketing landscape changes. I see some big changes coming out, so I think that this is going to be very timely for people that are advertising on Facebook, that are building content for Facebook and Instagram and other things. And if you're trying to kind of stay ahead of the competition, if you're trying to find out, is this really worth investing in this platform or building content for this platform, I think it's going to be a really, really helpful episode for you today. And I think this also works in the future too. We're definitely in a very unique time with, you'll understand more what I mean about that in a second, but I think that there's huge opportunities here for the average veterinary practice, and it's going to help you to get clarity on where you should be spending your time, what you should be doing, and what kind of marketing activities you should be doing, and I think just in general how to kind of approach new client acquisition. So these are all things that I've been thinking a lot about, and as I'm working with practices and other brands and things, we're seeing a lot of changes happen, and so it's just getting a little bit more difficult, so we're going to try and help simplify that for you. Before we begin, I'd like to mention a few things. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe in iTunes and Google Play, and if you could do me a huge favor, please leave me an honest review in iTunes or Google Play. I would really, really appreciate it. And if you'd like to get more info and maybe get some collaboration or anything like that, you can head on over to Facebook, join the group there. If you go to facebook.com/groups/the veterinary marketing nerds, you can sign up and join the group. It's free to join. You just hit request to join and you can be in the group there. Ask questions. There's a bunch of really smart people and they can give you collaboration and all kinds of stuff. I'd also like to mention this episode is being sponsored by usedvetequipment.com. The website is by Brad Haven and has been on the internet for 5 years now. What usedvetequipment.com does is it brings buyers and sellers together. So do you have any used equipment in your storage room that you want to sell? Are you looking to save money by buying used? Everything from cages, kennels, x-rays, ultrasound, surgery, laser equipment, lab equipment from IDEXX or Abaxis, tables, tubs, sinks, and all kinds of other miscellaneous items. If you're looking to buy or sell, head over to usedvetequipment.com. It's kind of like the eBay for vets. It works really well. Brad set it up very, very well so that both the buyer and the seller are protected. You can check out testimonials. You can see what it's all about by going to usedvetequipment.com. If you talk to Brad, say, "Hey Brad, I heard about you on the Veterinary Marketing Podcast." I would really appreciate it. Thanks for supporting the sponsors of the podcast. All right, so let's get into today's episode. So what I'm thinking a lot about lately specifically is that there's been tons of changes going on inside of Facebook. So I do digital marketing full-time. I have done digital marketing full-time. I was doing other things as well, but right now I just run an agency. I'm in the trenches every single day and have been for about the past year and a half. And it has been really, really interesting the way that the ad platforms have been changing. It was actually about almost a year ago to the date when things started to get really, really weird, specifically on Facebook. Now, Facebook has been a great platform for a very long time, and it's been like the Wild West. And because of that, we had all of this crazy stuff that happened with the last election. So Russians were in there buying ad space, and people were upset about that. And so basically, when Mark Zuckerberg was testifying in front of Congress, things changed forever. And all of the scrutiny based on what kind of ads you can run, what can you sell, what can you do, just changes happened dramatically. And it was actually pretty interesting. It was September of 2017 when organic reach really, really started to drop off. And then following that, in January of 2018, we got the notice that there was going to be no more organic distribution, basically. And then with the loss of organic distribution, what happened was a lot of advertisers flooded the market and continue to do so, right? Facebook is continually adding more and more advertisers. But what's happening and what's really interesting is that I've seen in several articles in Adweek and other places, and the most recent meeting that Facebook released, they had more ad revenue than they had expected by $50 million, which was great, but their average user time was down. And a lot of the key demographics that are actually using Facebook are leaving Facebook en masse, basically is what it says. Now, I don't think Facebook has a problem with number of users and things in general, but the problem is that they're reaching a point of saturation where they're not continuing to grow like they had been in the past. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just is, I mean, it's bound to happen, right? There's only a certain number of people in the world, and once they hit everybody, they can't continue to add users in the way that they had in the past. And they're getting close to that point, which is really, really amazing. Between all of the products that they own, right? They own Instagram, they own Facebook, Messenger, WhatsApp, and other things like that. They reach a huge number of people. So adding users is going to get more and more difficult for them. So the number of users that they have that are new, right, that's their product basically. They're running out of product to sell ads to, because their product is actually the users, and the way that they make money is through the ads. And so since they're reaching saturation of the market, I think that Facebook is only going to become more and more expensive, right? Because they're not adding more users, but they're definitely adding more advertisers. And especially as this ad platform, everybody knows about Facebook ads by this point. And if you don't, you've been sitting under a rock. And so they're making it easier than ever to jump in and start running ads. And as a result, people are just running ads like crazy. Last time I saw the number, I think they had crossed 3 million advertisers on Facebook and over 1 million advertisers on Instagram. It's probably different than that. So I just looked it up actually, and there are 5 million advertisers on Facebook as of April 11th, 2017. That's really, really interesting. Those numbers, that's huge. And so there's just less and less place to run ads, basically, is what's happening. Because attention, there's only a set number of ads that they can place, right? And so that means that ad costs go up, right? When demand goes up and supply goes down, the price goes up of that item. So what does that mean for you as a veterinary practice? I think that a lot of veterinary practices that I see doing ads or creating content and things like that, they are getting accustomed or have been accustomed to really, really cheap distribution of their content, really cheap distribution of their offers. And I think that that's been great so far. And I think that there's still a limited window to get cheap distribution on your video views, to build awareness for your platform and things. But you can't expect that this is going to be around forever. So I think that practices need to really double down on a few things. First, their content needs to be up to par. I don't think that moving forward, especially, I think that the window is getting really, really limited as far as if you want to establish yourself and get the benefit of these cheap views, cheap impressions, and reach your target audience at a very affordable rate. I think that window is shortening. And so as a result, your content needs to be up to content standards to compete with people that are creating content on Facebook that's engaging. So it's not just other veterinary practices. You're going to be competing with all of the other video creators and people that are interesting and creating, really, really good content that people actually want to see. So if you're not creating content right now, you got to start. And so that can be, it doesn't have to be just videos, but video is huge. I mean, if you're not creating videos in your practice that are getting good amount of distribution, and you're not trying to actively figure out how can I reach and engage the people that are coming into my practice, and what kind of things do they want to see, not just specifically like educational stuff, but I'm talking like entertaining content that is going to reach the right people and help segment your audience. So I would say that creating content moving forward is just only getting more and more important. One thing that I'm seeing too is that when brands and practices that I'm working with, when they don't have a strong library of content, or they don't have anything created, we're just starting from scratch, costs are dramatically higher than if somebody's actively creating content, and then that content is being put out there, people are engaging with it, and then we're able to retarget those engaged users with offers and things that help to drive revenue into the practice. So especially as Facebook gets more expensive, the better the content, the less it's going to cost to get it out there. But I think that Facebook probably will start to be prohibitively expensive for new client acquisition. And I'm just going to say in general. And that sounds crazy because I've been riding the Facebook train for a long time, but I just see cost per clicks going up, cost per impressions in some cases, especially if there's no content going up. It's pretty crazy. One of the clients that I have, it's business to business stuff, but they were running just content awareness stuff, and it was about $30 per 1,000 impressions, which is really high. For the audience that we were targeting, it should have been a third of that. And we were running ads in Black Friday and election season, but still, that's a crazy cost per 1,000 impressions. And I see that being more normal across the board in the future. So that being said, I think that especially having a variety of different platforms to use. So Facebook isn't the only thing out there. I know that that's what a lot of practices are using, but Instagram is very, very important. And again, Instagram is the same ad platform as Facebook. So those two things are very, very closely related. And especially because the way that Facebook creates ads, by default, they're just pushing it out to all of their platforms with non-selected managed placements. When you do automatic placements, it goes out to all of the channels. And since that's the case, I mean, just as people get on board and start doing ads, they don't really choose their placements, they just do automatic placements. And so this flood of new advertisers that keeps coming in is only going to make ad costs go up on Instagram as well. So Instagram is great, but it's right behind Facebook as far as costs for ad distribution. So having multiple channels to put your content out, number one, places that your clients and customers want to see your content, where do they engage in and take content in? That's very important to stay in front of them based on where they are. So we've talked about this in the past, but surveying your clients, finding out where they're actually spending time, and especially as age groups and demographics change, it makes a big deal as to where they're hanging out right now. So always need to be asking people what's their number one social media channel. And as you're hanging out with people that are in different age groups, if you have people that are in different age groups in your practice that work there, find out where people are spending time, because it's definitely important. You need to become a student of how people use their platforms. It's been really, really interesting too. Like, there was a kind of golden age of startups and tech startups that happened here, where things were just flying off the shelf, new product, new VC money was pushing out social platforms like crazy, and that just hasn't happened. It was really interesting. If you think, there was, I think pretty close to when I started the podcast, there were so many new platforms coming out. Snapchat was brand new. Meerkat was brand new, if you remember what that was. That was a live streaming platform. Periscope was brand new. There was Vine. There was, Instagram was still relatively brand new. There was all these weird social networks that were coming out where people were just like consuming these things, and that's really slowed down. I haven't, with the exception of, I'm sure, I'm trying to think, there hasn't been any kind of new social platform released with any degree of success, with the exception of possibly like Musical.ly, which was even not that recent, and then TikTok, which is a really weird one. If you see those annoying ads all the time on Facebook, I think they're just forcing that one through with their stupid ads. But there really is, a limited amount of these established platforms out there. And I'm not saying that something new won't come out. Anchor is kind of cool. It's not hitting the traction of, like a Snapchat or anything, but these platforms are now kind of controlling the attention. I think it had a lot to do with the way that Apple has recently changed their App Store as well, which makes it more curated and a little bit more difficult for things to kind of organically get out there. So I'm saying all this just to say that the platforms that are out there that are established right now, they're not going anywhere. And so having a presence established where you're creating content that your clients and are engaging with and that they actually like is just getting more and more important. So I think that if you're not running Google Ads, and if you're not running or creating content regularly, those are two things that are top priorities, in my opinion, if you're wanting to be successful in digital marketing for your veterinary practice. And so what I mean by that is, pretty much every practice that I work with has a limited budget, which makes sense, right? You don't have an unlimited budget to just go out and spend $1,000 a day for ad spend, right? And that would be cool, but it's just not in the budget. And a lot of people are really, really busy right now, which is great, but they kind of are putting new client acquisition on the back burner. So if you want to spend your money well and get the most bang for your buck, the kind of formula that I would be using right now is focusing a lot on a mixture of Facebook ads for new client acquisition, but not as much as Google AdWords. I would just be testing both of those to see where the cheapest cost per lead could come in right now. And I think that there's ways to do that that are effective, but for the most part, the traffic that you're going to be getting from Google AdWords is very, very different than the traffic you're going to be getting from Facebook primarily, because people are actually searching, they're engaging, they're not at the top of the funnel, meaning they're not just hanging out on Facebook and they see a cool offer and they're like, hey, I would like to check that out. Why not? Right? So if somebody's on Google searching for a veterinary near me, that's a situation where they're definitely interested. They're wanting to find somebody to come into their practice today, right? So that's like a transactional search. And since you're at the bottom of the funnel there, they're ready to become a client. That might be better ad spend. And a lot of the practices that I'm working with, we're seeing cost per clicks in the $1.50 to $2.50 range. It depends on the area, it depends on the competition and things. But that being the case, like that's getting pretty comparable to Facebook. And so the problem with Facebook is that it's not a transactional place, right? That's a contextual display network, if you think about it, which is really, really interesting because people don't really say Facebook is a contextual display network. That means that you're targeting people based on interest segments, not actions or behavior, and it's just display ads primarily. And so, that's definitely a different level of quality versus a Google AdWords network. So I know I'm rambling a little bit here, but I think it's very, very important that you consider it. So the way that I would structure almost every veterinary practice that I work with, depending on what they're doing, is I would be loading up the new client acquisition strategies primarily through Google AdWords, and then maintaining branding and client communication, and then remarketing offers to people that like the Facebook page. And I think that is a good way to build your audience. It's a good way to stay in front of people and also to continue to sell to the clients that you already have there. So having Facebook, having YouTube content, having Instagram content that is engaging and stays at top of mind for clients is just going to get more and more important. And then figuring out Google AdWords is going to get really, really important. So if you're not on AdWords, get on AdWords, and you need to figure it out, because I think that we're going to see some dramatic shifts in expense. I think that we're going to see some dramatic shifts in the economy here at some point in the future. And so having these things set up before these shifts happen will just really, really benefit you and your practice. So I think that's definitely some good advice for the average veterinary practice. And if you have any questions about this, head on over to the Facebook group. You can go to facebook.com/groups/the veterinary marketing nerds and ask questions and things. But I hope that this was useful, and I hope that you're thinking about where you should be spending your time creating content, what kind of content you should be creating, and then how to reach and engage your clients so that they know, like, and trust you and want to take your advice whenever you give it to them. So I hope that this was useful. If you enjoyed the podcast, please do me a huge favor, review the podcast in iTunes or Google Play. I would really, really appreciate it. And if you ever have any questions, comments, or need help with anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I will see you on next week's podcast. Have a great day.